I work with addictions, and talking about race is kind of like talking about addictions. There's a lot of shame, and it's hard to trust people to talk about it sometimes. Like addiction, the topic is also tough on relationships. That never stopped my father. I used to think he was a little off his rocker, but it took me years to appreciate his humanity. We grew up in a very privileged situation outside Baltimore in Green Spring Valley. I lived on Chattilany Hill. In the morning, I'd let my dog Clico out the door, and he'd come back at night for dinner. He had the free range. There was a golf course down the hill. There was big lawns and gardens and acres of woods to play with my friends, and we had a live-in maid and a gardener who took care of the grounds. There was a spring at the bottom of the hill. If you worked hard, you went to an Ivy League college, became a lawyer, doctor, stockbroker. Stockbroker, that's shorthand for we're rich and we're going to stay that way. Not going to college was not respectable and almost unheard of. This was the early 60s. People of color were called colored people, and they worked for us and our neighbors. They were around more than our parents. Our maid Carrie worked 6 days a week. She lived on the 3rd floor across the hall from me, and we shared a bathroom. I was scared of the dark, so I always left the door ajar, and she would come up at night, and if I was still awake, I'd see her, dog-tired, leaning over the banister, catching her breath. She worked for not a lot of money. She cooked great fried chicken, but I don't remember ever seeing her smile. My mom would go out and said, Carrie, take care of the kids. And we just considered that, and that was an opportunity to have fun. And we'd run around the house, slamming the doors. We'd get in fights, me and my sisters, and then we'd go up to her and say, he hit me or she hit me. And Carrie was like, I don't want to take care of you kids. I got to finish all my chores, and then I got to cook dinner. So she kept saying, I'm going to go to North Carolina and live with Maggie Pearl, my sister, if you kids don't stop that sniggle and grin. And we didn't really believe her, but one day she told my mother, Maggie Pearl's sick, I got to go visit her. And so my mother, rather than putting her off at the bus, we drove her downtown, and Carrie opened her door and shut the door, and my mother said, I don't think we're going to see her again. And then my mother said, lock the doors of the car, because it was not a very neighborhood we were used to being in. So many cars, so much happening so fast. It wasn't like our neighborhood. She never came back. And to me, it was kind of like losing a member of the family. She lived across the hall, and she was tough, but she was like part of the family. And nobody seemed to appreciate her and said much about it. Maids came and went after that. One was really pretty and had a nice smile, and I think she was my first crush. John worked in the yard. I used to like to help him rake leaves, and one time after not seeing him for a long time, because we went down to the bus station and there he was, my mother called him over, and I was so excited I went up and hugged him, and as we're driving away, my mother said, you don't hug colored men, they'll be embarrassed. And sometimes you didn't ask my mother a question because she'd give this look and you just kind of dropped it. And my father, if you asked him a question, he'd go on, and you don't know if you were more confused or you might get in trouble. So I didn't learn a lot from my parents. down on the greens, I helped my friend Cecil pour drinks after the 9th hole. He gave me Cokes, and we talked about everything between the foursomes that came along. And I loved the yellow pants the golfers wore. Then they would be drinking and laughing and joking. And these men seemed like masters of the universe to a 10-year-old. I wish my dad would join them, but his mind was on other things by now, besides playing golf and having black people serve him. When his father died, he began to think and behave differently. For instance, he took my sister to the Harvard Glee Club concert. They came to Baltimore. So I guess even though it was Harvard, they didn't have a budget for the Glee Club, so they asked the members of the audience to take people home with them. And so I wake up, I go down to breakfast, and there's like this black man at the table. And he was so like refined and dignified and assured, self-assured and well-spoken, and I'd never seen a black man like that. And my father, I guess, Baltimore is just down the road from Washington, and he went to the Martin Luther King March in Washington and began going to meetings and starting a pre-medical clinic and doing all this stuff in these neighborhoods where my mother would say, lock the doors. So they kind of went different directions. And he quit the Catholic Church, which was kind of a big deal for him because his family built the first Catholic church in Maryland. We moved to the city, and my dog died from rotten fish that same day. Everything began to change. I missed my first day of school because we were moving and lost track of the calendar. Nobody was keeping track of the calendar anymore. Mom, she wasn't cut out to be a single parent for 4 kids. Missed having Carrie put dinner on the table and kind of let us relax and have some sanity. Nobody knew how to talk about money. She overdosed on pills, blamed my father. We got sent away to schools, and there was no sense of home anymore, just coming and going. Family was never the same. And I lost the people in my life who gave it structure and support, and the people that cooked for me and that I helped rake leaves and help serve drinks. I thought I was helping them, but they were helping me, taking care of me, raising me. I never realized that until I took this course and started thinking about it. And let's see. My father, he was kind of a polarizing and complicated figure, but he was really brave to chart the path he did. And I'm really grateful for it, and it gives me some direction to work with these really difficult issues. And if somebody reads the notes I leave on a desk in the ER, I hope I'm strong enough to have any kind of conversation about it. Thank you.